Hey guys, welcome back to episode 6 of First Aid Unsolved. Yay. Today's episode is a little different because the case we will be discussing is not an unsolved case. While the name of this podcast is First Aid Unsolved, my main mission is to tell the stories of the victims, and Deshon Sellers was in fact a victim. I spoke with Lanita Brooks, who is Deshon's mom, and she talked a little bit about Deshon growing up, as well as an organization that she helped create called Mending. But before we get into that, I do want to take just a minute or two here to go over a few things before we get started. This episode was extremely difficult for me to write. Well, I don't want to say extremely. It's a bit much, but this episode was a bit difficult for me for two reasons. So at some point in his life, Deshon was put into a detention center. I can only assume it was Ferris, but I don't know that for sure because I didn't ask. I didn't ask where he went, why he was there, or for how long he was there, because I don't really care, if I'm being honest. I didn't ask because those details don't matter to me. Those details don't matter to this podcast. Those details really just don't matter. What matters is that Deshon was a 17-year-old kid who had made a mistake here or there, and he was on the right path after he learned his lesson. I really struggled because I didn't want to mention him being in a detention center at all because I don't want anyone to get the wrong impression of him. I decided to put this information in here, though, because his time at the detention center is ultimately what led to his passing. I try to put you guys all in a place to relate to these victims and their families because I do know that there are people out there who think that someone like Deshon, someone who had been incarcerated at some point in his life, that justifies anything negative that may happen to them in their life after the fact. And sorry, not sorry, but if you feel that way, then I'm truly sad for you, and I can only hope that you will change your mind one day. But I like to think of it like this. Okay. If I get a speeding ticket, I made the choice to drive faster than the law allows, right? Do I deserve to die in a fiery car crash? ? Does that bad decision justify me rolling my car on the highway, maybe into a river, maybe off of a cliff, and dying? Does the fact that I got a speeding ticket at some point in my life justify me dying in my vehicle? If you're not sure, the answer is no and oh. If I'm speeding and I get caught, I deserve a ticket. I deserve to pay my fine. And, I deserve what's ultimately probably going to be a hike in my insurance because those are the consequences of my actions. Those consequences are put into place so that I hopefully learn my lesson and don't cause more harm in the future and possibly injure someone or myself. I know that a lot of people listening have made some stupid mistakes when they were his age as well. I know you did because I know I did. That's all a part of growing up though, right? We learn by doing the wrong thing sometimes. Most of us just end up making mistakes that don't drastically alter our life in one way or another. And, or you just don't get caught. I know there are some of you out there who have done some shiesty things and you just didn't get caught, especially when, our generation, we were younger, there weren't cameras or phones, I should say, with cameras, and there wasn't that much social media, and, people got away with things. So don't sit here and act like you're an angel, okay? Sadly, Deshon made some bad choices, and that set into motion consequences that would not only alter his life, but the lives of so many around him. And, now, the second thing that made this episode so difficult to put together is the fact that there will be some talk of gang-related activity in this episode, which makes me a little leery. Deshon's killer was caught and pled guilty to the murder. He was also involved in a gang, which is one of the reasons why I'm not entirely comfortable with talking about him too much. That's just one of the reasons. Of course, the main reason, though, is that this podcast is about the victims. It's about Deshon, and it's not about this other young man. So I am choosing not to mention his name in this episode. As always, I will link the resources that I used in the show notes, and you are welcome to take a look at the articles about Deshon and his mother, and as well as the article detailing the sentencing of Deshon's killer, because that will be listed. And you know what? Say what you want, but I'm not about to sit here and put myself in a position, if I don't have to, saying things about people, that they don't want to be said. I am local to Delaware, regardless of where in Delaware. I just not, like I said, not comfortable putting myself in a position. So now that is all out of the way, I should say, we'll get into the main reason why we're here. Deshon T. Sellers and his twin sister were born on April 24th, 1997, to his mother, Lenita Brooks, and his father, Henry Sellers III. Deshon, this is so cute. Deshon was affectionately given the nickname Poppy, Poppy, not Papi for my, Boricua listeners. He was given that nickname as a baby. And when I asked his mom, how he got that name, she explained to me that he looked like an older man when he was a newborn. So they called him Pop and called his twin sister Mama. We've all seen those newborns, the wrinkly foreheads. They look like a grumpy old man. So I know exactly where that nickname came from. I personally thought it was so cute. Growing up, Deshon was not a fan of school. He didn't really misbehave per se. He was just not interested in sitting at a desk all day, and I do not blame him, if I'm being honest. Lenita often got calls about him because he loved to be the class clown, and he liked the attention that being the class clown got him. After Deshon's passing, several of his teachers and people who had worked with him reached out to Lenita to let her know that, even though he would cause disruptions from time to time, he was a good kid, and, they all loved him dearly. And despite school not being his favorite thing in the world, not graduating high school was not an option for him. He wasn't sure of any specific goals after school, but when Lenita sat him down at one point to talk to him about his future, he let her know that he was determined to finish high school. Deshon was a very active kid. I'll let you hear it from Lenita herself, but Deshon definitely sounds like most of the little boys, well, not little, but, most of the boys that I know. They can't sit still, and they are always getting hurt.
Poppy was very active growing up. He was always into something. He was more outdoor person. When he stayed in the house, he thought that was the worst thing for him to be in the house. He thought that was going to be the end of his life, just staying in the house. So every time he was in the house, he was like, "Mom, I'm bored. Mom, I'm bored. I need something to do. Go outside, Poppy." I used to live across the street from the basketball court. So the first thing in the morning, that's what Poppy would do. Him and his friends get together, go across the street, play basketball. And Poppy just liked outside, period. So basketball was his thing though. It kept him out of trouble. The story that sticks out the most to me is I would give anything to smell them funky feet again. Like, I don't care. Like, you could put a pair of socks in front of Poppy, and Poppy would think his old socks is better than the new ones. That stands out the most. I think I used to get on him so much about just his presentation. Like, your presentation, come on now. You have clothes, you have clean stuff, just put it on. But he thought that was funny. He really thought that was funny. I got so many stories of Poppy. It's crazy. Out of all my kids, he was the only one that used to go outside, get hurt all the time, playing sports or whatever. He stayed in the emergency room the most. And when he ended up with stitches, he thought he didn't have to keep them in for the amount of time they were supposed to be in. So he wanted to be his own doctor, then I would have to end up taking them back, and Poppy not knowing, they looking at me like I'm crazy. Like, what's the matter? They think it's me, but Poppy was just, he was a character. He was definitely a character.
The year prior to Deshon's death, his best friend, Shaheem, was shot and killed. Lanita did her best to console her son through this tough time and had to witness the friend's mother going through the grieving process and the funeral planning process and, all of the things that go along with a loved one passing. Deshon and his friends made up t-shirts and hats and apparel as a way to pay tribute to this young man. And, a lot of people to this day still do that. I don't think a lot of people get airbrush shirts or anything like that anymore, but, put their pictures. I've seen stickers on cars, RIP, you pay tribute to a loved one. So that's not something that's uncommon. According to Lanita, the shirts said Shy Gang. And I know I mentioned earlier that there would be gang talk in this episode. This is not what I meant. In this case, the term gang is referring to their group of friends. My crew, my clique, my people, my gang. So, they wore this apparel and they wanted to remember their friend. Now, Lanita knows her son was not an angel, but none of our children are. And if you sit here and say my child is an angel, I don't believe you. I'm sorry. But, she knew her son wasn't perfect, and that's okay. Kids are kids. They get into things. They make mistakes. But what she was not okay with is that some people saw Poppy and his friends with the Shy Gang clothing, and they associated them with an actual gang. Lanita assured me that was not the case, and I promised to bring this up because it's an important fact. I promised to bring this up and let the good people listening know that her son was a typical kid and was not gang affiliated in any way. I didn't find any reports of him being in a gang during my research, but she felt strongly enough about things that she heard about her son that she mentioned it, and I wanted to mention it as well. So I'm here to clear Deshon's name. You heard it here. Mr. Deshon T. Sellers, aka Poppy, was not a gang member. Sadly, issues arose during his brief time in the local detention center, and he had a few run-ins with some kids not long after his release. Deshon was murdered on February 16th, 2015, not far from his home. That's just 2 days after Valentine's Day.
Nobody's kids is angels. I know my son was into the streets. I know, different side of towns didn't like each other. Poppy was in detention center, and majority of the gang was in there. The gang that was involved in my son's killing. So when I guess they seen Poppy come into the facility, the rumor was that they was going to try to bank Poppy. Anybody that knows Poppy wasn't going back down from anybody. But immediately, Poppy was waiting on a bed to go to another cottage, and so he had to wait until that came available. But because the situation that happened, they immediately moved Poppy over to another cottage. And from what I was told was that they said they had told him that they couldn't get him in there, but they would get him on the outside.
The young man responsible for Deshon's death pled guilty to the murder in 2018. So Deshon was murdered in 2015. This process was drawn out, and this individual did not plead guilty until 2018. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison and will be 42 years old when he's released. That young man had previously been charged with multiple other offenses, but those charges were dropped as part of the plea deal that he accepted. He and 12 others were arrested in 2015 as part of an indictment that saw 13 individuals facing a total of 91 charges. 6 of those charges being related to homicide and 5 being related to shootings that resulted in injuries. Deshon's killer did apologize to Lanita and her family at his sentencing, for the hurt that he caused. But sadly, that's never going to bring Deshon back.
people say because of their upbringing and all this trauma and all mental illness and all this, like I didn't grow up in the most fortunate places. Like I moved from place to place, school from school. Like I can't even remember the schools that I went to, but I didn't set out to kill nobody. I made a way and just grew up, and I'm okay. Poppy, he didn't have the best life. He didn't have the best life growing up. Me being young, a young mother, and we moved from place to place all the time because that's just how it was. Like I didn't have it like that. I was a single parent, so he didn't have it like that too, but he didn't go out and kill somebody's child.
Including his twin sister, Deshon had 6 siblings, 2 boys and 4 girls. With so many personalities around, you would think that there would be some headbutting going on, but Lanita said that Deshon had a great relationship with all of his brothers and sisters. He was especially close to his twin, obviously, and the oldest boy that was born after him. Deshon was described as being very protective of his loved ones, and he also was known to stand up for himself. If you know me, anyone listening knows me, they know I can relate to that. Deshon has 4 nephews and a niece. 4 nephews and a niece that he'll never get to know. Babies that he'll never get to see grow up. Relationships that he'll never get to establish. Kids that he'll never get to know. Family members that he'll never learn to love. The loss of Poppy has deeply affected his family, especially his poor mother, Lanita. She shared that at one point or another, she contemplated suicide, and she was just so overcome with anguish and grief after losing her son. It took her years to pull herself out of that state, and she knew she needed to get into something. She had to focus on something in order to help her move on. Along with her sister and some other members, Lanita established a support group called Mending Hearts.
As some people don't know, Poppy was killed February 16th, 2015. So I took it really hard. Like I just at the beginning couldn't get myself together. Finally, a couple years went by. I was just telling my sister that I have to do something to like keep me motivated to help other moms as well, because now I'm everywhere I go, I'm telling Poppy's story. I'm telling everybody, I have another son. I had 3 sons. I'm saying? Poppy was just one of them, and my promise to him was I would never let his name die. So Mending Heart started in 2018. That's what we came up with, a support group. At the beginning, the support group was like, we had, I want to say 15 to 20 people before COVID started. And when COVID started, we couldn't get together as much. But I still talk to people through Facebook. On Facebook, I do still have the group on Facebook as well, Mending Heart. So some people just hit me in the group and they want to talk in the group. I still do other things as far as like get people portraits done for other mothers, other parents that's going through. And that's pretty much it for all of us, just, to keep in contact with each other and just give each other support.
I attended their most recent Mother's Day brunch, and I was not disappointed, okay? Let me just say. At one point, Lanita gave a speech and asked that everyone in the room who had been affected by gun violence to please stand up. I am not kidding when I say probably 90% of the people in that room, mostly ladies, but there was a man at my table who stood up as well. 90% of the room stood up. When I tell you I got chills, it took my breath away. It was devastating to see that many people, that many women in such a small space standing up because someone they have loved and cared about has been taken away due to gun violence. The 4-hour-long event featured food, poets, and prizes. I'm talking prizes. The 2 biggest prizes were a 55-inch and a 65-inch television. I almost said television set. There's no such thing as television sets anymore, is there? Golly. Newcastle County did make a donation to the cause, but a lot of what I saw was funded by Lanita and the group members themselves. Mending Hearts does have plans for another event in August, but details are not finalized yet. If and when I get an update, I'll be sure to share that info with you guys here on the podcast. If you would like to make a donation to the group, you may do so via Cash App by sending funds to $Steel Healing 2015. They are working on becoming a 501c3 soon, so that is exciting as well.
And that just got started one year. Me and my sister just got together and was like, we wanted to do a brunch. So it turned out really good the first year, and we just said to ourselves that we're just going to make this every year around the same time. It might not be on Mother's Day weekend. We actually pushed it out the weekend after Mother's Day because so many people want to do stuff with their moms on Mother's Day weekend. So we decided to push it out. We didn't know how that was going to turn out because people were like, Mother's Day over, but they don't know Mother's Day is every day, because we not only this is our job 24/7. This is what we do. So it doesn't matter what day that Mother's Day is celebrated on. We just want to celebrate mothers, period. And especially the mothers that then lost a loved one to gun violence or any type of violence, or just a loss, period.
A main takeaway for me from this interview was that there's still so much that needs to be done in the city of Wilmington. Lanita explained that the corner where Deshon was killed is still a very active area for gun violence. If you Google 23rd and Carter, Wilmington, Delaware, articles will appear that state multiple shootings have taken place in that same area since then. I'm not sure about red tape or budgets or anything like that, but it would make sense to me that the city would want to target areas that they know are not safe and attempt to make them safer, right? It's also a major issue that people are left to almost police themselves. I know that being an officer is a very tough job. I could never do it. But I also know that in some cases, not just in Deshon's case, that if people didn't step up and actively ask around and collect their own evidence, cases would not be solved and justice would not be served. It's real easy for me to sit here behind a microphone and preach about what I think should be done, so I won't do that. I'm going to try not to do that on this podcast at all. But I'll just say that someone needs to do something. If it weren't for groups like Moms Demand Action and individuals like Lanita and some of the other moms that I have had the pleasure of speaking with, I personally don't know what our towns, cities, and even states would look like. We need to be the change that we want to see, and we need to use our voices. That's for sure.
Only you gonna fight for your child harder than the police, because I had to like get up and really fight for Poppy. Like, I couldn't let his killer get away. It took me a while, but I was knocking on doors, like especially the doors that I seen cameras on, or buildings that I seen cameras on that was facing where my son got killed at. I was knocking on them doors. I was asking for information about, did y'all get something from, where my son fell at or something like that? Because right now we still have cameras in that area that don't work. So we've been fighting for cameras to be changed or better working cameras in that area for so long, because so many people, not only my son, but so many other people then got killed right in that area on that same corner. So still, it hasn't, like, the police, I don't think they think how important it is for these cameras to be working. Just like they have the shot spotters that they can go to a location where they hear gunshots. We need these cameras. We need these cameras working, or we either need better cameras. Whereas though they don't get shot out by the people that shoot up at the cameras because they know it's a camera there. Maybe they can make some type of glass, whereas though it can't be broken. But I mean, stuff happens right there because they know it's no cameras. Like, if it wasn't for us going out there fighting for justice for my son's murder would not be solved, because we was giving information to these cops, like we was part of the force and doing their job. They didn't solve my son's murder. We solved my son's murder.
One more important detail that I want to leave you all with today before we end this episode is the faith that Lanita has in the fact that her son is in a better place, and the faith that she has that she will be with him again one day. No matter your religion, no matter what you believe in, faith is one of the most powerful things on this earth. And despite Deshon losing his way at one point, Lanita knows where her son's heart was and knows where he is now. And you know what? That's it, guys. I'm signing off now, but I'll let Lanita be the one to take us out today. And as always, if you thought nothing ever happened here, you thought wrong. Bye, guys. See you next time.
One thing. Poppy had a worker that he was working with when he died. Um, her name is Sheila Nichols DuPont. That was his worker. So she was on vacation when it happened. But her son was taking her place until she came back. But she heard of Poppy's killing when she was on vacation. And she said her reaction, she dropped to her knees. She was telling me when her and Poppy last was together, they used to always go up to this place in I think it's Smyrna, to Helen's. That was their favorite spot, Helen's. So she said everybody that got into her car would try to change her music because she listened to um Christian music. So she was like, Poppy got in this one time and he didn't change it. And then she was asking Poppy, did he believe in God? And Poppy told her, yeah. And did you what faith did he believe in? And he said Christian. And then so she was like, I know my baby made it. I know he made it. And then I was like, Poppy knew. Poppy, I tried to raise them into church. So Poppy knew. Even when Poppy was in detention, I gave him little pamphlets to read, just asking God for forgiveness and all that type stuff. So Poppy knew. And this one time, Poppy, I went to go visit Poppy, and Poppy was upset because they took his book that I gave him, which was a faith book, and I would just tell Poppy read the end because the end always has something in there asking for forgiveness. And he was really upset that they took his book, but they end up giving him his book back. So I do. I know my baby made it. I know he made it. Another thing is he got out. He got out. It was close to tax time, so he missed Christmas. So he had asked me to take him shopping. I was like, yeah, Poppy, because I heard all the rumors going on that they was going to do this to him, but me, I'm thinking that they just want to fight him. You know what I'm saying? They just want to fight him. I'm not worried about that. So I didn't never in my wildest did I think they was going to kill him. But anyway, I told him, I said, Poppy, I don't mind taking you shopping or whatever. I just want y'all to change. I just want you to change. He's like, Mom, I'm chilling. I'm not doing nothing. And then, I just took that. That was his answer. Okay. And then I was like, and I did tell him that because I don't know what I'm going to do if something happens to you. He's like, Mom, I'm chilling. And by him telling me that he was chilling, he was done with everything, I knew he was done. Whether he picked up a gun before, whether he carried one before, whether him and his friends went to fight these people before, whatever, I knew in his heart he was a changed person. And that means a lot to me that he was ready for change, even though I wasn't able to see change or I didn't get to see it. I know my baby had a change of heart when he left this earth.